Section 1. Hey friends, tonight we journey down a warm, sun-kissed road. The very road where a blind man once waited, longing for a miracle. The desert air is still, the sky a soft gold, and everything seems to pause for something sacred. If you thought miracles were always loud and dramatic, think again. This one begins in quietness. It unfolds in gentle steps. It's a story not just of healing, but of deep, soul-level sight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in tonight, drop a comment below. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how far this peaceful little space can reach. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The road to Jericho is wide and dusty, winding gently between the hills like a ribbon of earth and heat. You walk slowly, your sandals brushing against the dry ground. It's late afternoon, and the light has turned soft, amber and rose. There's a rhythm to this place, a hush in the wind that feels almost sacred. The sky seems deeper here. The silence has weight. You're not alone on this journey. Around you are others, some traveling with you, some walking just ahead or behind. People murmur softly, voices hushed as if they sense something is near, something extraordinary. You breathe in the scent of sun-baked stone and fig leaves, and let the moment settle over you like a blanket. Somewhere up ahead, the crowd begins to thicken. Nothing frantic, just a subtle shifting, like a wave slowly gathering strength. The kind of energy that makes your chest tighten in quiet anticipation. You're moving closer to something important, though you're not sure what yet. A child tugs at her mother's sleeve, pointing down the road. Others lean forward, eyes narrowing as they peer into the distance. There's a name on their lips, soft, reverent. Jesus. The name drifts on the wind like music, and when it reaches your ears, your heart stirs. It's not fear, it's not excitement exactly. It's something deeper. Recognition maybe, or longing. You keep walking. The earth feels warm beneath your feet. Your fingers brush against a tall wildflower, soft and feathery like hope. A small group rests under the shade of a fig tree. One man stands, shielding his eyes, trying to catch a glimpse of something beyond the horizon. Another kneels, drawing quiet patterns in the dust. Everyone seems to be waiting for something, and yet no one knows when it will arrive. You feel that too. That sense that heaven is near, but just out of view. Further down the path, a bend curves gently, and beyond it lies the city of Jericho. You can see the shimmer of rooftops in the distance, sunlit and sleepy. But your eyes are drawn to something else. A figure sitting by the roadside, still, unmoving. You don't see his face at first, just the outline of a man wrapped in a cloak, sitting close to the edge of the road where the dirt meets the stones. He's quiet, but not in a way that blends in. It's the kind of stillness that feels full of sound, like he's listening to something no one else can hear. He's not watching the road, he can't. His eyes are closed, and not just from rest. His head tilts slightly, as if leaning toward every passing footstep, every crunch of gravel, every shift in the breeze. He is watching with his ears. You slow your steps. Something about him holds your gaze. You don't know his name yet. You don't know his story. But in this moment, you know you're supposed to be here. You know this is where the story starts. There's an ache in the air now, though gentle, a sense that someone has waited a very long time for something good, something healing. The kind of waiting that wears through the years and yet doesn't give up. You glance back toward the grove.
Section high. The hush that followed your question hangs gently in the air. You don't rush forward. You don't turn away. You simply stay there for a moment, feet planted in the dust of that old road, listening. And that's when you hear it. Not the loud voices of the travelers or the distant call of birds settling into evening. This sound is quieter and more urgent. A voice rising from the edge of the crowd, rough yet filled with unmistakable strength. Like a flame that refuses to flicker out. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. It comes again, louder now, an echo that rolls through the gathering like wind through tall grass. You turn your head quickly toward the sound, and you see him, the same man from before, the one who sat still, cloaked in shadow and silence. His lips move again, his face turned toward the road, eyes closed, but face full of longing. Son of David, he cries, have mercy on me. It comes again, louder now, an echo that rolls through the gathering like wind through tall grass. You turn your head quickly toward the sound, and you see him, the same man from before, the one who sat still, cloaked in shadow and silence. His lips move again, his face turned toward the road, eyes closed, but face full of longing. Son of David, he cries, have mercy on me. He cannot see, but he knows. He knows Jesus is near. People closest to him flinch. Some roll their eyes. Others hush him, annoyed at the disruption. They gesture for him to quiet down, to wait his turn, or more likely, to not have a turn at all. But he will not be silenced. He calls again, louder, clearer. There's no shame in his voice, only deep hunger, the kind of cry that wells up from years of darkness and waiting, from the raw edge of hope that has been refused again and again. What would you have done standing there? Would you have told him to hush, to be still? Or would you have leaned in, drawn by the desperation wrapped in faith? You take a small step closer, your heart moved by his courage. His voice doesn't tremble, it soars, not because he is confident in himself, but because he believes in the one who heals with a word, who lifts the broken with just a look. Jesus is still walking. The crowd shifts, pressing forward with expectation, but the voice continues. Have mercy on me. Something in you stirs. You wonder again, what would it feel like to cry out like that? Not just speak, but pour your soul into the space between silence and miracle. You glance again toward Jesus. He's not far now, and you notice something. He's walking, but he's listening. There's a slight pause in his step, a subtle shift in his face, and though the road is loud with movement and murmurs, his attention seems to settle in one place, on the man who cries out in faith. You feel the hush roll outward like a ripple in still water. The crowd slows. Whispers fill the air. Some seem confused, others curious. What's he doing? Jesus turns. He doesn't look at the prominent men standing nearby. He doesn't speak to the well-dressed or the loudest voices. His gaze rests toward the voice that refuses to give up. The blind man on the edge of the road. The one who sees more with his heart than most do with their eyes. You watch, your breath caught in your chest, as Jesus takes a step closer to the voice. The disciples pause, unsure. People begin to step back, making space. For a moment, all of Jericho seems to lean in. Then a murmur passes through the crowd, a message from Jesus himself. Call him. A gentle command, a sacred invitation. Those near the man, those who had moments ago told him.
Section 3. The crowd is nearly still now. The wind, too, has quieted, as if listening. You shift to the side, giving space as the blind man, Bartimaeus, moves slowly forward. His hands extend slightly, not in fear, but with intent. There's no doubt in him. He isn't wondering whether Jesus will receive him. He knows. Something deep in his spirit tells him that the one he's walking toward is already reaching for him. And then he stops. He is standing in front of Jesus. The air around them feels thick with meaning, not dramatic, not loud, just deeply full. You hold your breath as Jesus looks at him, really looks. His eyes, full of understanding, meet the blank, unseeing gaze of the man before him. But somehow, you can tell, they're already connected. Then Jesus speaks. Not in a tone of grand authority, not in judgment, but in gentleness. What do you want me to do for you? It's such a simple question, so human, so compassionate. You expected maybe a proclamation, a declaration of healing. But instead, Jesus asks the man to speak for himself, to bring his heart to the surface, to name his longing aloud. You think about how often we carry silent aches, hidden even from our own prayers. But here, Jesus invites the man to say it, to unwrap his desire in the open air, where healing can touch it. Bartimaeus doesn't pause. His answer is immediate, clear, soaked in years of hope and nights of weeping. Rabboni, I want to see. The word he uses, Rabboni, is more than teacher. It's personal, reverent, intimate. It's the kind of title you give to someone who holds your trust, your story, your soul. And the request? It is raw in its simplicity. Not help me get by, not give me comfort, just I want to see. You feel your chest tighten, not in sadness, but in awe. Because this is what faith sounds like when it is honest. Not decorated, not rehearsed, just true. Jesus nods. No oil, no touch, no dramatic pause. Go, he says softly. Your faith has made you well. That's it. And yet, in that single breath of speech, the world shifts. You blink, as if expecting to see something change in the sky. But it's more subtle than that, like the sun leaning in just a bit closer, like time itself took a step back to give the moment more room. Bartimaeus opens his eyes. You see it happen. A flicker, then a widening, then a gasp. And just like that, he sees. Not partially, not gradually, fully. His eyes lock first, not on the trees or the road or the crowd, but on Jesus. As if even in this brand new world of color and shape, his soul knows the most important image to cling to. You can almost feel the rush that must coursing through his heart. After years of nothing but blackness and lightless days, the world floods in. But it's not overwhelming, because the first thing he sees is love, the face of Jesus. Imagine that. The first thing your eyes have ever seen being the gaze of the Son of God. Not judgment, not pity, but joy. A tender pride in his eyes, as if he always knew this would happen and is simply glad to share it with him. Around them, the crowd murmurs, awe rolling across them like a tide. Some whisper, some weep, others are silent. Section 4. You walk quietly now, letting the moment breathe. The road is the same, dust beneath your feet, the same stone-lined edges, the same sky overhead. But something has changed. Not outside you, but within. It's as though a new space has opened up in your chest, wide and tender. As if watching Bartimaeus receive his sight has revealed something you didn't realize you were missing. You glance ahead. Jesus walks with calm purpose, not rushing, not lingering. His steps are steady, his robe brushing the earth with every stride. And just behind him walks Bartimaeus, no longer feeling his way forward with uncertain feet, but striding, confident, joyful. You catch the way he glances at everything. The trees swaying gently in the wind, the stones glittering in the light, the faces of those he only knew by voice. There's a quiet joy in his movement. Not the explosive celebration of someone showing off their miracle. No, it's something deeper, grateful, reverent. You get the sense that for Bartimaeus, this isn't the end of a story, it's the beginning of one. The crowd around you seems changed too. The tension that once stirred, the scolding voices that tried to silence him have faded. People now whisper about what they witnessed. Some shake their heads in disbelief. Others can't stop looking at Bartimaeus as though trying to comprehend how this could happen right in front of them. But one thing is clear: no one walks the same as before. You slow a little, watching the ripple effect unfold. A man ahead clutches his chest with trembling hands, eyes damp. A woman to your left seems deep in thought, her child resting on her shoulder. They're all thinking the same thing you are. If Jesus could do that, what else is possible? And then a shift. Someone begins to hum, a soft melody, barely louder than the breeze. It carries with it something sweet, like the first note of a lullaby. Others join in, not in song, but in presence. The energy is calmer now, like the whole crowd has collectively exhaled. You find yourself reflecting, and not just on what happened to Bartimaeus. You remember your own silent hopes, the ones buried deep, the ones you've whispered into the night, the fears you've carried like cloaks, heavy and familiar. You begin to wonder, what if you could leave those behind?
What if healing wasn't just about eyesight, but about the parts of you that have been closed off for years? Ahead, Bartimaeus stumbles slightly over a stone. He's still getting used to the world beneath his feet. But he laughs, that soft, breathy kind of laugh that's full of wonder. And you realize something beautiful. He's not just walking. He's learning to live in the light. He's seeing the world for the first time, not just with eyes, but with a soul that's been waiting for this day longer than he probably knows. You wonder what color surprised him first. The blue of the sky? The warm earth tones? The brightness of another person's smile? And then you imagine the first thing he saw, the face of Jesus. That thought wraps around you like a soft shawl. How often do we rush to see the world and forget to first see Him? The one who made us, who calls us, who walks beside us even before we're aware of His presence. You take another step, slower now. There's a tree nearby, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. The leaves catch the light like small flames, flickering gold and green. You stop for a moment and let your eyes trace their dance. And you think, this is how Bartimaeus might see it too. Not as something ordinary, but as a quiet miracle. Isn't it something how
Section 5. The hush deepens now, not the hush of uncertainty, but of reverence. You walk on, your steps softened by the golden twilight. Around you, the crowd has begun to thin, some branching off toward homes, some settling along the roadside in quiet conversation. But still ahead, steady as the evening breeze, walks Jesus. And just behind him, Bartimaeus, no longer a beggar, no longer unseen. You find yourself slowing again, not from weariness, but from wonder. You're remembering the sound of Bartimaeus's voice earlier, the cry that rose above the crowd. It wasn't polished, it wasn't rehearsed. It was raw, brave, unfiltered. Faith that shouts. That's what it was. You think about how many times faith is portrayed as calm, gentle, and quiet. But here, tonight, it took the form of a voice raised above disapproval, above fear. A voice that refused to accept invisibility. Bartimaeus didn't whisper his longing, he declared it. And you wonder, when was the last time you let your heart shout? You've kept things inside, haven't you? Dreams too fragile to name. Sorrows you couldn't find words for. Maybe you've feared being too much, too loud, too broken. But tonight, Bartimaeus gives you permission. Not to make noise, but to hope audibly. To believe out loud. To cry out, not because you're certain of the outcome, but because your soul can't bear the silence anymore. The memory of his voice echoes in your ears. Son of David, have mercy on me. You recall the moment it broke through the wall of murmurs and footfalls. It stopped Jesus in his tracks. One voice in a sea of many brought heaven's attention to earth. You glance at Bartimaeus again. He walks with a rhythm now, half steady, half in awe. Every few steps he seems to pause, eyes widening at something new. The texture of a tree's bark, the dance of sunlight on water, the flutter of a dove's wings overhead. This world he had only imagined is now opening like a scroll before him. And still, his eyes keep returning to Jesus. You realize something in that quiet moment. Sight was the gift, but it was never the goal. Bartimaeus didn't cry out just for healing. He cried out to connect, to be known, to come face to face with the one his heart had already recognized in the dark. He had faith before the miracle, before the light. And that faith, it wasn't neat, it wasn't quiet, it shouted. You hear a voice to your left, an older man speaking gently to a companion. He kept calling, even when we told him to stop, he says, his tone carrying equal parts shame and admiration. I thought he was a nuisance, but now he trails off, emotion catching in his throat. You understand. It's easy to overlook the desperate, to hush the inconvenient. But tonight, you've seen the power of persistence, the holiness of a voice that won't be silenced. Jesus didn't just hear Bartimaeus, he honored him, paused for him, drew him close. You wonder if that's what you need most. Not answers, not solutions, but the nearness of someone who sees you, even when others pass by. You breathe in deeply, the evening air cool against your skin. The wind shifts, carrying with it the...
Section 6. The night deepens gently, like a soft cloth draped across the sky. The sun has dipped just below the horizon now, leaving behind a glow that brushes the world in rose and indigo. You continue walking, the road still warm beneath your feet from the day's heat. The stillness is not empty, it's full of the memory of a voice that cried out, and of the footsteps that stopped in answer. And still, Jesus walks. The crowd thins even more. People peel away in twos and threes, murmuring their thoughts to each other, or walking in reflective silence. But you stay, and so does Bartimaeus. You study the way he moves. It's different now. Not just that he sees, but that he walks with someone, with purpose, with presence. And Jesus, he walks as he always has, attentive, unhurried, present in every step. And yet, there's something different in him too. Not outwardly, not something you can name, but you feel it. A deep love rising from within him, the kind that chooses, that stops, that sees. You begin to understand something you hadn't before. Jesus didn't just perform a miracle. He made space for someone who had always been pushed to the margins. And he did it in the middle of a crowd. Think about that. He didn't wait until things were quiet or until no one was watching. He stopped everything right then for one man. The heart that stops for one. You feel that phrase settle into your chest like warm oil, because this is who he is. The God who pauses in the middle of movement. The teacher who doesn't just teach from mountaintops, but listens from roadsides. The healer who answers not just with power, but with presence. You look around and see others still reflecting. A woman presses her hand to her heart, her eyes following Jesus' form in the growing twilight. A young man nearby wipes tears quietly from his cheeks, his shoulders rising with a deep breath. No one is loud, no one is rushing. They've all seen what you've seen, and more than that, they've felt it. Jesus didn't heal Bartimaeus because it made a good story. He healed him because he heard him. And that changes everything. You wonder quietly how many others needed to know that tonight, that they too are worth stopping for, that their voice matters, that the ache they carry is not invisible to heaven. You think of your own life, the moments when you felt overlooked, when your quiet cries seemed to vanish into the wind, when you wondered if anyone, let alone God, noticed what you carried. But here, under a darkening sky, walking the same path as a once blind man made whole, you begin to believe again. You begin to believe that God does stop for one, and maybe He'll stop for you too. Jesus and Bartimaeus continue just ahead. There's a quiet rhythm to their steps, like the two have fallen into some shared beat. You notice how Bartimaeus glances now and then at the trees, the stars beginning to dot the heavens, the warm lamps flickering from distant homes. And each time he smiles, not out of pride, but gratitude. It's as though the whole world is a gift he's unwrapping moment by moment. And somehow he knows who gave it to him. You remember how fast everything happened earlier. The cry, the crowd, the pause, the healing. But now it all slows down. Because love lingers. Jesus didn't just heal and move on. He walks with him still, not because...
Section 7. You walk now in a world that feels transformed, not because the path has changed, but because you have. Up ahead, Jesus slows. The crowd behind you has thinned to just a few quiet souls. Some sit by the edge of the road, hands folded, eyes closed. Others linger, watching Jesus and Bartimaeus as if still unsure if what they saw really happened. But for you, the miracle isn't in question. You felt it. Not just in what Bartimaeus received, but in what Jesus gave. A moment of sacred stillness in the middle of movement. A pause that said, "You matter. I hear you. Come closer." And now, Jesus is doing it again. He stops. The soft rustle of fig leaves overhead seems to hush. Bartimaeus, still glowing with new sight, pauses at Jesus' side. His face is lifted, expectant, not needy, but open, like someone ready to receive whatever is next. Jesus turns to him with that same calm he carried earlier, and then he calls him forward. Not just physically, not just by proximity, but with something deeper, with presence, with invitation. There's no spotlight, no drama, just Jesus turning to a man who the world had long ignored and saying without words, "Come closer." You take in the moment, the simplicity, the intimacy. This wasn't a transaction. It was never meant to be a one-time miracle followed by polite applause. No, this is relationship. This is the beginning of a walk that continues beyond the healing. And you begin to see something sacred in that small act. Because miracles don't end with the miracle. They begin with the call to come closer. You think back to earlier in the day, before the shouting, before the pause, before the transformation. Bartimaeus sat in stillness, waiting, listening. And now here he stands, summoned, seen, and held in the gaze of love itself. You wonder how that must feel. To be called, not based on ability or appearance, not based on status, but simply because Jesus wanted you near. And now you hear it, the way Jesus speaks. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with flash, but with invitation. You take a slow breath. There's something about that rhythm that reaches deep into your spirit. You begin to realize that Jesus calls each of us in different ways. Sometimes through silence, sometimes through a question, sometimes through the ache that never seems to leave. But always, it's a call to come closer. You glance down at the ground. Small stones crunch softly beneath your feet. A beetle crawls slowly across the path, its little legs moving with quiet purpose. The ordinary, you notice, is filled with reverence now. Because when you walk with Jesus, even the dust is sacred. You look back at Bartimaeus. He hasn't said anything yet, not since receiving his sight. He's been walking, watching, absorbing, and yet his silence says so much. He's not rushing to explain or perform or prove. He's simply staying close. What if that's the true miracle? Not just that he sees, but that he chooses to follow. Jesus didn't command him, he invited him. And Bartimaeus responded with his feet. You reflect on that deeply. How many times has God whispered something into your life only for you to hesitate, to doubt, to wait for a bigger sign? But Bartimaeus didn't wait. The moment he heard the call, he threw off his cloak, stumbled forward, and came near. And now, even after the healing, he stays near. There's a sweetness in that nearness. Section 8. The cloak still lies in the dust behind you. Soft, faded, frayed at the edges from years of use. You remember watching it fall from Bartimaeus' shoulders, how quickly he let it go when Jesus called him. No hesitation, no second glance. It was more than fabric. It was his identity, his shelter, his signal to the world. This is who I am, a blind man, a beggar. And yet, in a heartbeat, he left it behind. You pause beside it now, your eyes tracing its folds. The wind lifts a corner gently. It flutters like something trying to let go. You ask yourself quietly, what have I been holding on to? What cloaks still cover parts of your heart? What worn labels or false protections do you wrap around your soul, not because they heal, but because they're familiar? Bartimaeus didn't know what would happen next. All he knew was that Jesus had called. And to answer, He had to shed the thing that had defined him for so long. You let the question sink in deeper. What would I lay down if I believed healing was on the other side? Jesus didn't tell Bartimaeus to discard the cloak. He didn't require it. But the moment Bartimaeus heard the call, he chose. He made space for the new by releasing the old. You think about all the things that become cloaks in your life: fear, comparison, guilt, old pain that quietly defines how you see the world. And then you imagine what it would be like to shrug them off. Not with force, not with shame, but with faith. Just as Bartimaeus did. You take a few steps forward, leaving the cloak behind. Not yours, but symbol enough. Bartimaeus walks ahead, lighter, not just because he sees, but because he no longer carries the weight of who he used to be. And Jesus, he walks just slightly ahead of him, always near, always aware. You catch a glimpse of Bartimaeus' face as he turns to take in the world. His eyes wide, not in fear, but in wonder. Everything is new. Every shadow, every shimmer, every detail once described to him but never witnessed, it's all alive. But he doesn't linger in that amazement. He returns his gaze to Jesus and follows. You marvel at that. Sight wasn't the prize. Jesus was. So many would have rushed off, tested the miracle, run into the town, shouted their story. But Bartimaeus chooses presence over publicity. You imagine what the disciples are thinking, watching this new follower walk among them. Some of them saw this man as an inconvenience just hours ago. Now he's walking in step beside the Messiah. And no one questions it, because when Jesus calls someone, the past no longer disqualifies them. You remember the line he spoke before the healing: "Your faith has made you well." It wasn't magic. It wasn't earned. It was faith. Simple, rugged, persistent. You think again about that moment. The instant when Bartimaeus flung off the cloak. The way he didn't fumble or cling to it. He just rose. You wonder how many miracles begin with the rising. Not the dramatic ones, but the quiet, holy courage to stand, to choose hope, to move. And maybe that's the part we miss in our own stories. The miracle isn't always the end result. It's the moment we decide to believe again. The breeze lifts around you now, soft and fragrant, with the scent of olive leaves and warm.
Section 9. The road ahead is open now. No crowd pressing in, no whispers filling the air. Just the quiet of evening settling into the land, and the steady presence of Jesus walking ahead, with Bartimaeus just a few steps behind. You watch them, struck again by how simple it all is. No ceremony, no grand announcements, just relationship, trust, movement. And then Jesus turns. He faces Bartimaeus, gently stopping in the middle of the path. The light from the sky washes over them, muted purples and golds now, like the last breath of day. The air is still, sacred. You hear his voice again,
calm and low. "What do you want me to do for you?" He had asked it before, but hearing it again now, after the miracle, it lands differently. There's something holy in the question, something tender. Jesus already knows what Bartimaeus wanted. He gave it to him. He could have moved on, satisfied that the work was done. But he asks again, not because he needs an answer, but because Bartimaeus does. You stand still, listening, watching. Bartimaeus looks up, eyes full of light. He speaks no words at first, only silence. His chest rises with a deep breath, and you can tell he feels the weight of the moment too. Then, slowly, he whispers, "Lord, I want to see." It's the same answer, but now you realize it means more than vision. It means, I want to understand. I want to follow. I want to walk in the light you give, not just in my eyes, but in my life. And Jesus hears all of it. His expression doesn't change, yet you can feel the warmth rising from him, like sunlight after a long night. He doesn't question the depth of the man's longing, he welcomes it. You reflect on the question yourself. What do you want me to do for you? It echoes in your heart, not with pressure, but with invitation. It's not about fixing everything. It's about presence, about truth. Maybe your answer is different tonight than it would have been yesterday. Maybe your truest desire isn't the thing you thought you needed, but something deeper. Peace, direction, connection, clarity. Maybe you too just want to see with a new heart, to understand why certain things happened, to believe again, to notice beauty in places you stopped looking, to find God in the ordinary. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the question swirl softly inside you. What do you want me to do for you? It's not rhetorical. It's the heart of Christ reaching for yours. The God who listens, who waits, who doesn't rush past your ache. You open your eyes. Jesus has begun to walk again, and Bartimaeus follows close behind, quieter now, as if the question planted something in him that doesn't need a loud answer, just time to unfold. You notice the small details again, the sway of the olive branches, the way the stones catch bits of fading light, the sound of your own breath. Everything seems clearer, as if the question opened your eyes too. Ahead, Bartimaeus glances at a small child walking beside her mother. She holds a basket of figs and looks up at him, curious. He smiles warmly, gently. The child smiles back, unaware of the weight this man once carried, unaware of what he used to be called. To her, he is simply kind. And to you, he is something more. A reminder that healing doesn't just restore what was broken.
Section 10. There is a hush over the road now. Not the kind that feels empty or uncertain, but the holy kind. The kind that follows something sacred. The kind that lingers after light touches darkness and leaves it changed forever. You walk quietly, letting the night speak.
The stars have come out fully now, scattered across the sky like small lanterns, each one a soft reminder that light still shines, even in the deepest dark. Crickets begin to sing from the fields nearby. Olive trees whisper in the breeze. And up ahead, Jesus walks. Beside him, Bartimaeus, no longer the blind man, no longer the beggar. He walks like someone who belongs, like someone who knows that the one beside him didn't just heal his eyes, he saw his soul. There's no ceremony to this part of the journey, no witnesses, no crowds. Just a quiet, steady walk between the one who gives sight and the one who now sees. And yet, you feel it. This is the moment, the one when the miracle becomes real. Because sight is not simply about eyes, it's about perception, clarity, a whole new way of understanding the world. And Bartimaeus is learning to live in that light. You watch as he reaches out to touch the bark of a tree, running his fingers over its grooves. He looks down at a small stream nearby, his eyes lingering on how the starlight dances on its surface. Every glance, every gesture is filled with wonder. And yet, he doesn't get lost in the beauty of the world. He keeps looking back to Jesus. That, you realize, is the true miracle. He isn't captivated by the gift. He's drawn to the giver. You think about that deeply. How often we chase answers, healing, clarity, when what our soul really longs for is closeness, nearness to the one who knows us fully and loves us still. Jesus doesn't speak, not yet, but his presence speaks volumes. You walk a little slower now, letting the moment stretch. You think again about how it all unfolded. A man on the roadside, a cry in the crowd, a savior who stopped, a question, and then, just like that, sight. But it wasn't flashy, it wasn't thunderous, it was gentle, quiet, filled with dignity. Jesus didn't heal to impress, he healed to restore, not just eyes, but identity. And now, Bartimaeus walks with the bearing of someone who knows he is seen, valued, loved. You can feel it radiating from him, not pride, but peace, not arrogance, but awareness, the kind that only comes from knowing you were heard by heaven itself. You pause for a moment beside a low stone wall. Vines curl over the edges, dotted with small purple flowers that seem to glow faintly in the moonlight. You run your fingers across one of them, and for a moment you imagine how Bartimaeus might have touched it for the first time. The softness, the fragility, the unexpected beauty in something so small. You feel it in your chest, that ache that comes when something long forgotten is remembered again. Wonder. You're beginning to see it too, not with your eyes, but with your heart. The miracle of being alive, of being known, of walking with a God who stops when you cry out. And when he does, he asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" Not because he doesn't know, but because he wants you to say. Section 11. The night is deep now, but not cold. There's a warmth in the air that wraps around you gently, like a blanket that's been waiting just for you. A stillness has settled, not heavy, but full of presence. And as you walk, it feels less like you're traveling a road and more like you're moving through a sacred memory, one you didn't even know you needed until now. Ahead, Bartimaeus slows, not from exhaustion, but from something deeper. His feet stop, and for the first time, he turns his full body toward Jesus. Not just his eyes, not just his heart, everything. He stands still, completely open. Jesus turns too. The two of them face one another in the soft starlight. You stop walking, sensing something sacred is about to unfold. Bartimaeus says nothing, but his eyes say everything. This is the moment, the one that lingers in the soul long after the miracle. The moment when you see the one who saw you first. You hold your breath. He's not just looking at a man. He's looking at the face that once lived in his imagination, drawn by stories, shaped by hope. And now he sees, really sees. And the first thing his new sight locks onto is Jesus. Not the trees, not the sky, not even his own hands trembling with wonder. He sees Jesus, and something in you aches beautifully. Because isn't that the dream? That when the darkness lifts in our lives, the first thing we see is Him? The one who never rushed you, the one who heard your silent prayers, the one who always walked beside you, even when you couldn't feel it. You watch their gaze hold for what feels like an eternity. No need for words, just breath and presence and understanding. Then Bartimaeus smiles. It's different than before. Not the wide smile of surprise, not the tentative one of newness. This smile is deep, anchored, steady. The smile of someone who now knows, I was never forgotten. You wonder what he's thinking in this moment. Is he remembering all the times he sat on the roadside, hoping for someone, anyone, to notice? Is he thinking of the cloak he left behind, the crowd that hushed him, the moment when everything changed? Or maybe he's thinking nothing at all. Maybe he's simply being, fully present, fully healed, fully held in the gaze of his Maker. And then something subtle happens. Bartimaeus steps forward, not because Jesus gestures for him to, not because he's unsure, but because something in him is drawn deeper, closer. He reaches out, placing his hand gently on Jesus' arm. And Jesus smiles back, eyes full of warmth, no rush in his expression, only delight. And for a moment, time feels like it stands still. You feel it in your bones. This is what we were made for. Not just to be healed, not just to be seen, but to stand face to face with love itself. And as you watch them, something settles in your chest, a knowing. The world is still imperfect, still filled with noise, confusion, shadows. But right now, in this sacred exchange, you're reminded of the truth. Light always finds us, even on dusty roads, even in forgotten places.
even when we're just a voice in a crowd. Jesus never misses a cry. You take a deep breath, letting the moment press into your spirit like soft rain on dry soil. Bartimaeus steps back slightly now, his expression still soft, his eyes shining with something new, not just sight, but belonging.
Section 12. The path opens wider now, as if welcoming you deeper into something eternal. To your left, the olive trees sway like sentinels, their silvery leaves shimmering beneath the starlight. To your right, the road stretches onward into the gentle night, curving softly like a river made of dust and footsteps. Each step you take is quiet, but filled with meaning, like a prayer whispered into the wind. Ahead, Jesus walks steadily. Bartimaeus is just beside him, a little behind, though no longer hesitating. His stride has found rhythm, confidence, but not the kind of confidence that comes from pride or attention. No, this is something gentler. The quiet confidence of someone who knows he belongs. You glance toward him and see it again, how his eyes roam the world now, slowly, deliberately. He's seeing everything for the first time. But you can tell he isn't overwhelmed. He's grateful. You wonder what each new detail means to him. The deep purples and blues of the sky, the soft orange of flickering oil lamps in the distance, the curve of a shepherd's staff resting near a sleeping flock. And then your gaze shifts to Jesus. The way he moves, the way he listens, not with ears only, but with his whole being. He doesn't rush. He doesn't pull Bartimaeus forward or make grand proclamations about what just happened. He simply walks. With. That word sinks into your heart. With. Jesus doesn't just pass by. He doesn't just perform and move on. He stays. He walks with. You think of all the moments in your life that felt like a blur. Prayers offered into silence. Changes you didn't ask for. The days when all you could do was sit by the road and hope something, anything would shift. But maybe, even then, he was walking with you. Maybe that's the kind of sight Bartimaeus received. Not just the ability to see the world, but the revelation of who had always been near. You pass by a small well now, nestled at a bend in the path. The moonlight reflects on its surface like liquid silver. Bartimaeus slows and peers in, startled for just a moment at the image he sees. His own face. Maybe it's the first time he's ever seen it. You stop too. He studies his reflection, not in vanity, but in wonder, as if asking, "Is this who I've been all along?" You wonder the same about yourself. If you could see your soul the way Jesus does, what would you find? Not shame, not lack, but light, belovedness, a life that's been watched over even in the silence. Bartimaeus turns from the well and continues walking, eyes a little shinier now, though not from sorrow. It's the kind of shine that comes when your heart is just too full to contain it all.
you feel it too. You think again of the day, how it began with dust and stillness, and a man sitting unseen on the edge of the world. And now he walks beside the light of the world. The transformation wasn't loud. It wasn't broadcast. It was intimate. And isn't that how God works most often? In quiet moments, in deep heart spaces, in the calm after the shout, when you finally dare to believe that He's not just powerful, He's personal. The breeze grows cooler as the night matures. Crickets hum a lullaby. Somewhere in the distance,
Section 13. The silence between you and the stars is no longer empty. It's full. Full of the footsteps that have come before you. Full of the heartbeat of the one who walks ahead. Full of the quiet joy of a man who once sat in the dust and now walks freely, eyes open, heart wide. You follow a little behind now, watching Bartimaeus as he moves. He's no longer looking everywhere at once. His eyes still scan the world, yes, but now with rhythm, with peace. He's not rushing to see everything. He's walking as one who knows, I'll have time, I'm not behind. The urgency of pain is gone. The tension of waiting is over. And in its place, peace. You feel it too. You look around, and suddenly the world seems to shimmer in a new way. Not because it has changed, but because you have. There's a gentleness to everything. Even the shadows seem softer. The stones under your feet no longer feel harsh, but grounding. The wind isn't just passing, it's guiding. And then you hear it. Not a voice, not a sound, but something inside you. The echo of the miracle. Because what happened to Bartimaeus didn't end with his sight. It rippled. You notice it in others too. The woman who had lingered behind, now walking just a little straighter. The child whose quiet wonder has deepened into stillness, her tiny hand curled around her mother's robe. The old man at the edge of the path, now humming something that sounds like a psalm, half melody, half memory. Even the trees seemed to lean in. The miracle wasn't just for Bartimaeus. It was for everyone watching. For you. You begin to feel what they must feel. This sense that if it could happen to him, if Jesus would stop for someone like that, then maybe he would stop for me too. Maybe he already has. And you think about that cry, "Son of David, have mercy on me." You remember how the crowd tried to silence him, how his shout felt out of place. And yet, it was that cry that changed everything. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. You reflect on your own heart. How many prayers have gone unsaid because you didn't think they were worthy? How many hopes have stayed silent because you thought your pain was too small? But tonight, you know better. Faith doesn't have to whisper. Faith can shout. Faith should shout when it knows the one who listens is mercy himself. You walk a little faster, catching up slightly. Bartimaeus glances back, not out of fear, but out of familiarity, like someone used to walking alone, who now realizes he doesn't have to anymore. And you smile at him, because you understand. You don't have to walk alone either. This is what healing does. It doesn't just give you what you lacked. It restores what you forgot. That you were always meant for closeness, always meant for love, always meant to walk in the light, not sit in the dark. You hear a voice in the distance, someone recounting the story already. Did you see how he threw off his cloak, they say, awe in every syllable. And another responds softly. It was like he was already sure it would happen. You think about that. The kind of faith that moves before the miracle. The kind of trust that says yes.
Section 14. Later that evening, the road begins to quiet. Not because the story is ending, but because it's settling, like embers glowing after the fire has burned bright. The kind of stillness that doesn't speak loudly, but remains deep and undeniable. You keep walking, steps soft, heart open. The stars are fully awake now, 1,000 tiny witnesses overhead. The kind of sky that seems too wide to understand, and yet, somehow, tonight feels personal, like it knows your name. Jesus walks just ahead, and Bartimaeus walks beside him still. But something has changed. There's no longer the slight hesitation in his stride, no second-guessing where to look or how to move. His posture has straightened, not with pride, but with belonging. It's like watching someone grow into their name. You pass by a small gathering of travelers resting near the edge of the path. They murmur to each other as you pass, soft awe in their voices. Is that him? Yes, the blind man. He sees now. You hear it repeated like a song. The blind man sees. But not everyone gets the full story. Some only heard the crowd. Some only saw the moment after. But you saw it all. You heard his voice rise above the noise. You saw the cloak fall. You watched his trembling steps as he walked toward Jesus without knowing what would happen. And now you see the quiet joy in his face. A man once known only by his lack, the blind one, the beggar, the outsider, now walks not just with sight, but with purpose. You wonder how people will speak of him in the days to come. Remember Bartimaeus, the man who saw before he could see? Because truly he did. His faith saw what eyes never had. And perhaps that's what Jesus noticed most, not his condition, but his clarity, his refusal to be silent, his belief that mercy was possible. And now he walks in the light of that belief, not just with open eyes, but with an open heart. You step a little closer, and Bartimaeus turns to you for a moment. There's something in his gaze, a kind of invitation, not flashy, not formal, just this. You can walk this path too. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have seen all the miracles. You just need the courage to cry out, to believe you're worth hearing, to step forward when he calls. Because that's what Bartimaeus did. And the ripples of his faith are still moving outward. You feel it in the way others are talking, watching, reflecting. They're not just amazed by what happened. They're asking deeper questions. Could this happen for me? Could he stop for me too? And even though no one answers out loud, you already know. Yes, he would stop. He will stop. He already has. Because that's who Jesus is. Not just the Savior who walks ahead, but the one who pauses, who turns when a voice rises in desperation, who calls the forgotten forward and then walks with them, not as healed trophies, but as beloved companions. You remember how the disciples looked at Bartimaeus earlier, some puzzled, some doubtful.
Section 15. The path is narrow again now, and the night is nearly full. The moon, once hidden, has risen high and clear, casting long, gentle shadows that stretch behind you like echoes of where you've been. You walk slowly, letting the silence settle like soft dust, stirred only by footsteps, wind, and memory. Jesus still walks ahead, unhurried. Bartimaeus walks beside him, his silhouette relaxed, his steps sure. The man who once lived in darkness now walks in rhythm with the light of the world. You realize something. He hasn't looked back once. Not once has he turned toward the spot where his cloak fell. Not once has he searched for the familiar things that once defined him. His place on the roadside, the people who overlooked him, the years of waiting. He left them fully. You think of your own life. How many times you've asked for healing, only to carry your old identity like a safety net. How often you've received peace, yet still glanced behind to the shadows of who you once were. But Bartimaeus, he's only looking forward, not to find answers, but to follow the one who gave him a new name, a new way, a new future. And maybe that's what true healing looks like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. You pass a hillside now, soft and quiet, dotted with low shrubs and the sleeping hum of life. Somewhere, a small flock of sheep lies curled together, the faint bell on one of them chiming with the wind. The smell of earth and oil and distant wood smoke fills the air. And through it all, this thought lingers in your spirit. Faith gives vision long before the miracle. You've seen it, haven't you? Bartimaeus believed before he saw. He followed the sound of hope before his eyes ever opened. He trusted the voice that called his name, more than the doubts of those around him, more than the years of silence, more than the weight of his past. And that trust brought him into light. You hear someone speak softly behind you, a traveler perhaps, speaking to their companion. He walked by faith, didn't he? A pause. Then, he saw him even when he couldn't see. You smile, because that's it. That's the truth that's been building with every step. Vision isn't just about sight. It's about recognition. Recognizing who Jesus is before the proof, before the healing, before the outcome. It's about trusting the whisper that tells you you're not alone, you're not forgotten, you're already seen. And once you believe that, the world looks different, even in the dark. You draw closer now. The road begins to slope downward toward a quiet village, lit by soft lanterns and resting windows. You hear the hush of sleep settling over the homes. Somewhere, a lullaby hums from behind stone walls. A mother, perhaps, rocking a child in her arms. And still, the three of you walk. Not because there's a destination, but because the walking is the miracle now. Each step taken in faith. Each breath drawn without fear. Each glance forward, not to escape the past, but to honor the one who called you out of it. You realize something. This story wasn't just for Bartimaeus. It's for every one of us who's ever waited, who's ever wondered if we were seen, who's ever held pain in silence, unsure if we had permission to cry out. This story whispers gently, you do, you can. And when you do, he listens. Not because your voice is the loudest, but because your voice is yours, unique. Now the night is still. The stars above blink slowly, like they too are ready to rest. You breathe deeply, heart calmed, spirit full. There is nothing left to figure out, nothing to strive for, just peace, gentle and real. Bartimaeus is no longer the blind man. He is no longer the beggar. He is no longer who he was. And maybe neither are you. You've walked the road with him. You've listened to his cry. You've felt the hush when Jesus stopped. You've watched the miracle unfold, not with fanfare, but with quiet mercy. And now it's your turn to rest. Let your breath slow. Let the weight of your day fall away. You are not waiting in the dark anymore. You are walking in the light. And the one who gave sight to Bartimaeus walks with you still, not just in ancient stories, but here, now, on every road, in every moment you feel unseen. He is there, listening, calling, loving. So close your eyes and let the soft hush of this miracle carry you. You are safe. You are seen. You are deeply loved.